Brilliantly Created wants me to talk about a love relationship between a Scorpio and a Capricorn. Thank you for your question. In astrology, Capricorn and Scorpio are highly compatible. First, let's talk about their elements. Capricorn is an earth sign and Scorpio is a water sign. Earth and water are highly compatible in astrology. Think about it. If you want to grow something, you want to grow a plant, you need earth, you need water. When we're talking about whether zodiac signs are compatible with one another, we're looking to see synastry. Synastry meaning that when those two energies come together, good things happen. Something good gets created, okay? Thanks to you guys that are tapped on the screen to make the live, to wake up the live, to let other people know that we're here having this live discussion. So water and earth have natural synastry. Here on earth, water and earth grow vegetables, they grow plants, they make wood for us to build houses, they make materials for us to make clothes, they give us food to eat, they help us do our jobs, they basically protect us and they provide for us, okay? So water and earth together are a wonderful complementary kind of system because they work well together in terms of supporting each other's growth, okay? So when you're looking at those two energies, you expect them to be naturally compatible because, they create fertility. When we're talking about synastry, we're essentially talking about fertility. What's bringing life forward. Manifestation is about creating life, not necessarily a person, but creating something, whether it's art, creating something beautiful, creating something new that adds value to the world. So when water and earth come together, that value is easily created, it's easily demonstrated, and it's really kind of easy for it to take roots, okay? So that's one element of it. The other element is that both of these are feminine zodiac signs. Generally, I like for feminine zodiac signs in astrology are negative zodiac signs. Negative in the sense that they play defense with life as opposed to playing offense, okay? Masculine zodiac signs are going to be the zodiac signs that play offense. Feminine zodiac signs play defense, okay? Meaning that they are more passive, they are more observant, they are more receptive, they are more intuitive, they are more emotionally intelligent, they are more tuned in, energetically, emotionally. They catch all the things that other people miss, okay? Feminine zodiac signs are more reactive than they are active, okay? Masculine zodiac signs tend to be more active than they are reactive. As an example, when a Scorpio or a Capricorn likes somebody, they're not people that are just going to see the person and as soon as they see that person, they're running after them to go talk to them, to go court them, to go, kiss up to them, to go try to grab their attention. That's not how they function. When feminine zodiac signs like you, they're going to be slow. They're going to watch you. They're going to observe you from afar. They're going to be taking notes. They're going to make sure that you are who you say that you are. And it's going to be a very slow and steady process of examining all of the data to make sure that the data is accurate and that it's consistent, it can be trusted before they decide to move forward. They're not people who are going to immediately, as soon as they get the urge that they like you or they have a crush on you, they're going to want to do something about it. Masculine zodiac signs, on the other end, are going to be more prone to take action. So when you have two feminine zodiac signs together, the challenge is they're both negative and they're both passive, but the good thing is that they're both negative and they're both passive. So they understand each other really well. They can communicate with one another without necessarily, being aggressive or being too forthcoming. There's a lot of subtlety to feminine energy that feels very warm, very loving. The other thing is because generally, we live in a patriarchal society. Hi, Waterwind. Thank you so much for my gift. We live in a patriarchal society. So Women, because we are smaller physically than men, to be able to survive, we've had to acquire different skills, okay? So men can go through the world bulldozing their way through everything they want. They can be aggressive, they can be violent, they can shout. If they like a woman, they can start harassing her immediately. They can run after her. If she says she's not interested, they can keep pursuing her. Society has allowed men to have more leverage in using their aggression, using their forthright, fiery energy, which, by the way, this is fire in alchemy. That's why you may see Jay-Z throwing this symbol when he's on stage. Jay-Z is a fire sign. He's a Sagittarius. So this means fire in alchemy. So fiery energy is direct. It's brave. It's courageous. It's not bashful. It's aggressive, it's eager, it's action oriented, and feminine energy is all of the opposite. So in order to survive, women have had to develop other skills that masculinity doesn't have, and that's being observant, being able to read between the lines, being able to read energy, being able to sense when people are being deceitful, being able to sense when the energy is not safe, being able to be cunning, being able to be clever, being able to be manipulative, being able to be passive aggressive. All of these are very feminine traits because women cannot battle men in the ring physically. They've figured out different ways to get their needs met. As an example, I know we're in 2025 now, but let's wind back the clock of time to 1920, okay? If you lived in 1920, women did not have the right to work, right? Women were at home taking care of their children. They were baking, they were cooking, they were taking care of the home. They didn't have a lot of leverage as they do now because they didn't have a lot of power, a lot of independence. If a woman wanted to acquire something, she had to go through her husband, okay? For that woman to get that thing from her husband, she couldn't just boss him around. She couldn't just tell him what she wants him to do for her. She had to manipulate him emotionally to do it for her. As an example, let's say she wanted a new stove and he didn't want to buy that new stove. She's going to wait until they're having dinner with another couple. And then she's going to ask the wife, oh, last time I was at your house, I noticed that you had a stove. You have a new stove. Where did you get it from? And the wife is going to say, yeah, my lovely husband Jim here. Yeah, he bought that for me. And I love the new stove. It makes our dinner time so much easier, and then she might go, oh, what a lovely, experience that you have with your husband, Jim, how was that? Was that a pretty penny? That depending on level of comfort, they may get into price. So anyways, all of that is happening behind the scenes because a wise woman, before she even gets to that dinner, she already got together with her girlfriend, right? So both wives already got together before they're sitting in front of the man, and they've already discussed the stove. They've talked about it for hours, and one of them has already expressed, I want that stove that you have, but my husband is not going to buy it for me. He's refusing. Maybe she's married to a cheapskate. So then she's like, when we have dinner next time, I'm going to ask you about your stove, and I want you to talk about it, and then maybe that might encourage him. So it's this whole setup. So these are skills that women have that men don't have because they've never had to acquire it. A man has never had to beg another man to co-sign his idea so that his woman can do what he wants. He just tells her what he wants and she does it. That's how it works. But women can't just tell men what they want and they do it. So sometimes when you have two feminine in a relationship, in the case of Scorpio and Capricorn, there's a lot of passive aggressive energy here because those are the skills that women have had to develop to survive. These two signs don't do well when they're in their aggressive energy because it gets out of control. They're not used to being aggressive, and that doesn't mean they're not competitive, and it doesn't mean they can't be aggressive. It means whenever they get too heated, they lose control. Okay? Remember, fire is heat. Heat is masculinity. Fire signs are the most masculine zodiac signs on Earth because fire is the most masculine energy, followed by air. When the earth signs and the water signs get too heated, because heat is now where they're comfortable, they lose control. So this is why oftentimes fire and earth like to be cool. They like to be avoidant. When there's a problem, they'll rather look the other way. They'll stick their head in the sand. They'll observe from afar. They'll analyze. The same goes to when they're in a romantic relationship with you. So generally these two, even though they're both feminine, tend to be a solid soulmate pairing because they have similar values. They have similar dispositions. They're both a bit traditional, although Scorpio a little bit less when compared to Capricorn. But they both value the idea of building a family. They both value the idea of working towards a goal that is concrete. They both value the idea of being an honorable person, treating yourself with self-respect, and treating other people with respect. They both value showing up in the world as a decent human being. They both value being kind and being loyal. Loyalty is a really rare quality in this world nowadays. Capricorn and Scorpio really value loyalty, and they're very good at it. Both of them are. Another thing that I love about them is that they are my worst case scenario zodiac signs. These guys have a plan A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. They're both super paranoid. They're both very negative in their disposition. It doesn't mean they're not happy people. It means the way they'll get through the world is by thinking about what can go wrong. What could go wrong? You know, what don't I know? What is this person keeping from me? Everything that they do is from a place of defense because they know what you see and what you hear cannot be trusted. So they always go beyond what their eyes see and what their ears see. These two are very excellent at being able to read people, at detecting energy, and figuring out what people are not saying. So that makes them very compatible because they can certainly understand each other. They're always prepared no matter what the circumstances, no matter what environment they're in. They're never thrown off of their game because they're always in control of themselves. These two don't lose control often. This is why when they do, it's really bad. And that's what I was getting to. Because they exercise a lot of self-control. In a case of Capricorn, because Capricorn is ruled by the planet of karma, they've learned from a very early age that not having control over yourself lends to problems. Because Capricorns were all born in environments where the family home didn't have a lot of control. Either that or the family home had too much control, which means in either case, they didn't learn what a healthy amount of control is. So Capricorn, especially at the rising, are going to be extremely controlling people for this reason. The same goes for Scorpio. For Scorpio, it's less about control in terms of structure in the home. It's around emotions. It's around safety. It's around boundaries. Thank you so much for my gifts. I appreciate it. A lot of Scorpio people, Sun, Moon, and Rising, but especially at the Rising, grew up in the home where their boundaries wasn't respected. Their safety wasn't respected. Their voice was not respected. Their sense of soul integrity and power was not respected. So they grow up to be adults who are very sensitive to their internal needs, who are very protective of their safety because nobody ever did that for them. So for Capricorn, is protective over the ability to create their own life and sustain it. For Scorpio, is protective of their inner world because people have violated their inner world at an inner age, which created a lot of distortions and paranoia about whether they're truly safe. Because prior to those violations, it was all good and they thought they were safe, and then they realized they weren't. And these were family members, people that they were supposed to trust and they were supposed to feel safe around. So when you take a child who didn't feel safe in their home environment, you know, and you bring them outside, you know, and they have a lot of trauma from that as a child, yes, you're going to have a traumatized adult who struggles with trust issues. And you will never find a Scorpio, Sun, Moon, or Rising, or any kind of dominant placement who does not struggle with trust issues because of that. Well, the good news is Capricorn also struggles with trust issues. Because just like Scorpio, Capricorn grew up in an environment where, are you ready for this? Even though they were a child, They were actually the most mature person in their family. Can you believe that? That you can be a child born in a home where you're the most mature person. And the reason you're the most mature person is because the grown-ups all act like children. Because they lack emotional intelligence, they lack the ability to be responsible for themselves, and as a result of that, they make the Capricorn child responsible for them. So from a young age, Capricorn often ends up raising other people's babies and ends up paying adult bills and ends up taking on responsibilities that are not theirs. They did not have a fun childhood. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising, no fun childhood for them. And this is why they're very controlling. So the beauty of this pairing is that they don't mind it. They understand that control is vital for survival. Excuse me. They understand the importance of boundaries. They understand the importance of respecting boundaries. They understand the importance of your word meaning something. They understand when people are playing emotional games with them. They understand when it's time to check out of bullshit. They understand how important it is to keep yourself safe because it's nobody else's responsibility to keep you safe. So these two tend to have a deep spiritual and emotional bond when they come together. One additional layer to this companionship that makes it highly effective is that Scorpio represents power and Capricorn represents dominion, spiritual dominion, and for Scorpio is power. So when you put the zodiac sign that represents dominion and the zodiac sign that represents power together, you're going to get a very powerful pairing. These two don't fuck around. They're very serious about what they want, what they don't want. They're very clear about what they want, what they don't want. They're very good about staying within the limits of whatever agreements they have with the person that they're in. Loyalty is so important to these two. And luckily, they both speak that language. So there is no need to convince each other of behavior that's appropriate or inappropriate because it's inherently understood. Also, they have a lot of pride, the two of them, because it stems from really their self-respect. They've had to fight so many wars to come out of that home that they grew up in. And even after that, because they didn't have the foundation that other kids had in their home, they've had to really battle themselves every day to help build a solid foundation for themselves with very little support. So when you take that kind of warrior, somebody who's had everything taken from them, who's been able to rebuild it, to regain stability, when they start dating, they're looking for somebody that will add value to their lives. You know, they don't take hearts of the matter like playfully. Scorpio and Capricorn do not enter relationships for fun because they're bored. They're looking for something to do. It's very serious business. And they put a lot of energy on the front end, again, with the feminine energy to make sure that this person is who they want. And more importantly, this person has things that they want. These two do not do partnership if you have nothing of value to bring to the table, because they know if you don't have valuable things to bring to the table, you're going to be depleting theirs. And because they've had to fight for their lives and for the stability that they've created since they were a child, they don't play about their lives. So if you're going to come in, you have to go through an extensive vetting process that lasts a long time so they can make sure you're really a good candidate for the job. And once they let you in, it's truly for life, in life or in death. They're extremely loyal to their commitments once they make them. The other thing is these two have a high sex drive. So that's another plus that they have together. If they truly love each other, they can have a lot of fun while building an empire together. The only negative side of this pairing that I see, these two are ultimately true soulmates, and they don't mind the darkness. They don't mind going to war with themselves, going to war with each other, going to war with the world. It's not all kumbaya with these two, you know. It's real, it's raw, it's committed, it's serious. The only negative of this energy is if they're terrible communicators, this can be an issue because they're both deeply intuitive and highly sensitive to energy. So when things are not going well in the relationship, they both also have very high standards. That's the other thing. So when things are not going well in the relationship, they have to learn to communicate about those things so that they can work on improving them, as opposed to just defaulting to being frustrated because things aren't going well and then taking out their frustrations on each other. That often happens with feminine signs, and sometimes they do it without even realizing that's what they're doing because you just happen to be the only other person there, you know? So I feel something uncomfortable. You and I are both in this uncomfortable thing. I want to express my discomfort, but I don't have the confidence to just say what my feelings are without, you know, lashing out. So instead of just clearly and calmly expressing, these are my concerns, these are my issues, this is what I want some resolution around, you know, I get into this mode where I begin to pick at you and pick you apart because I don't feel good and I want you to feel as bad as I feel because it's the only way that I know that you feel what I feel, because it's important to me that you reflect back what I feel, because if you don't reflect back what I feel, then how do I know that you feel what I feel as deeply as I feel it? Does that make sense? So they need a lot of external validation for their feelings, especially in the case of Scorpio. Capricorn tends to be a bit more stoic. They don't need a lot of emotional demonstration. But the problem is Capricorn can sometimes come across as uncaring and cold and too calculated. You know, and while Scorpio might be a lot more emotionally available, but Scorpio is also very emotionally controlling. So Scorpio has this habit, you know, when they're not self-aware, of trying to transfer their negativity from themselves to other people because it's too overwhelming. You know, Scorpio is actually a deeply sensitive soul, and they get overwhelmed very easily with the intensity of their emotions. So when they're in intimate relationships, they struggle sometimes to critique the problem without critiquing the person. Okay, so when two people are in a relationship, when there's a problem, you know, the mature way to address it is, you and I are together facing this problem. What can we do together to fix the problem? Water signs in general tend to have very poor boundaries with their emotional regulation. So when they're feeling things, they assume other people feel them too. So when other people are not demonstrating, like if a Capricorn, being stoic in nature, is not reflecting back the Scorpio's energy to them, Scorpio might feel slighted. Scorpio might feel as though Capricorn doesn't care. And the thing about Scorpio is, if they feel like you don't care, they want to put on a show just to show you how much less they care than you do. Does that make sense? There's a childishness to water sign energy when it comes to emotions. They don't have very good control, even though it's their tool. Water is their tool, and water is like their element. The issue is the boundaries. That, you know, because liquid takes any shape that you put it in. If you put a liquid in this glass, it takes that shape. If you were to pour it on top of this sticky note, it's just going to sit right here. Liquid, because of the nature of water itself on a molecular level, it doesn't have much structure. It tends to adapt to whatever environment you put it in. So Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio all struggle with the same thing. Being a water sign means not having a firm structure. While Earth is firm and unmovable, water moves anywhere and everywhere. And to make matters worse, it absorbs everything. You put a drop of water, moves anywhere and everywhere. And to make matters worse, it absorbs everything. You put a drop of tint in here and you put some clear water, the water is going to change color. Water cannot protect itself from its environment. It just gives in, emerges. So emotionally, what that means is that when water is feeling something, it needs to merge because it can't just hold it. And that's all fine and dandy, but the main thing with Capricorn is you have to be upfront and you have to be direct. When Capricorn senses that you're playing manipulative emotional games with them, they disconnect. That's the end of it. There's no other way around it. Because Capricorn is too emotionally mature to engage with emotional dysregulation at a certain level. They have a short, like there's a little threshold for how much they're willing to entertain when it comes to emotional dysregulation. They have this expectation that everybody behaves like an adult. That means everybody has to be responsible for themselves emotionally and every other level. So the only issue I can foresee with these two, even though they are soulmates, is if the water sign is emotionally dysregulated and emotionally immature and not able to self-reflect, and they're trying to pass their negativity from themselves onto the Capricorn, because the Capricorn is not going to be receptive. They're not going to accept the invitation. They're not going to be open to it. They're not going to be inviting any of it. They're just going to simply disengage because they expect you to be mature, to be a grown-up, and if you have a need, to communicate about it like an adult. And if you don't have a need, then you shouldn't be pouting about it like a child. It's one or the other. They don't leave a lot of room for in between. You have to remember, Capricorn is a cardinal zodiac sign, which means a leader. Leaders don't like messes, and feelings are messy, okay? Feelings are messy. And because all humans have feelings, that means we're all messy, Capricorn included. But the difference is the way Capricorn copes with their feelings, it's quite unnatural for most humans. They're a bit like an alien. Because remember, they share Saturn with Aquarius. So the weird thing about Aquarius that you guys don't like is also in Capricorn, which is that they're self-contained. That's why they represent dominion. That's why they sit at the top of the zodiac wheel, because they don't need anything or anyone to survive. Because remember, they didn't even have parents. These are people that weren't given parents. A child that was not given parents, and I don't mean they didn't physically come from people. I mean they came from people who didn't parent. So a child that wasn't given parents who survived doesn't need anyone. So when Capricorn is doing relationships, they're very insistent on you bringing value. And Scorpio does too, but the difference is when Scorpio gets in relationship, they want that intimacy. They want that shared emotional labor. And Capricorn can sometimes be very resistant to big feelings. Big demonstrations of feelings are very unattractive. They don't like uncontrolled displays of emotions in general. They don't like it. It's a huge turnoff, and they're associated with something negative. They don't think, oh wow, you're having a human moment. You know, let me be supportive. Let me be here for you. Let me hold space for you to have this moment. And let's come together to see how we can. No, Scorpio is deliberate about wanting to transfer the negativity to Capricorn. But Capricorn is very resistant to feeling responsible for other people's feelings that they otherwise should be managing independently of them. Because to Capricorn, you're still an adult, whether in a relationship with me or not. So this feeling that you're having, how should an adult cope with this? Thank you, Water Wind, for my gift. I appreciate it. Thank you for my 50 hearts. How should an adult cope with this situation? And if you don't know the answer to that, then you shouldn't be in a relationship. And that's how Capricorn thinks. Because even though you're in partnership, they expect a level of emotional detachment, because they are ruled by Saturn, the planet of karma, who is detached. The closer you get towards Pluto, excuse me, the closer you get towards Pluto, who's the furthest away from the sun, the more emotionally detached you get, okay? The zodiac signs that are closest to the sun are more emotionally in tune. Think about Taurus as an example. Taurus is an earth sign, right? Taurus is a fixed sign. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. And Taurus is exalted at the moon. In astrology, the moon sign is related to the mother because it speaks to our emotional nurturing, the emotional nurturing we received as a child, right? So your relationship with your mother has everything to do with your moon sign. And the skills that we need to handle our emotions are given to us by our mothers. When we're little and we will learn how to walk and we'll fall and we'll cry, she will teach us. via her reaction. You know, did you have the mom that would come towards you and reflect your pain, like, oh, I'm so sorry you have a boo-boo, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay, what do you need, do you want me to kiss your boo-boo, you know, that whole thing? Kids need that. They need you to reflect their emotions so that they know it's safe to feel these things. Because Scorpio and Capricorn are both super traumatized zodiac sign, these are karmics in astrology. Scorpio, Capricorn, and Aquarius are the karmics. These zodiac signs are the most traumatized zodiac signs. In most cases, these guys, sun, moon, or rising, I can already predict they didn't have that. I can already predict they didn't have that. They had the parent that didn't care if they fail. They had the parent that shamed them if they fail. They had the parent that yelled at them if they failed. They had the parent that made them feel guilty for falling. You know, they had the parent that reminded them that they were useless for fall. Like, you get what I'm saying, right? So oftentimes when these types get together, they don't know how to do feelings, but love is about feelings, okay? Taurus, who is ruled, you know, Taurus is ruled by Venus. When you think about proximities of the planet, you know, you have Earth and you have Venus, okay? Now, think about where Saturn is in relations to Earth, really far back. Think about where Pluto is in relation to Earth, all the way to the end. Well, in the case of Scorpio, Pluto is their ruler. Scorpios can be the most icy, cold when it comes to their emotions, expressing their emotions. It doesn't mean they don't feel feelings. It's that they have this uncanny ability to turn off their emotions in a very kind of ruthless manner, okay? Because emotions and life and joy is with the sun. The sun is where the happy feelings are. This is why Leo is ruled by the sun. And the sun is close to Earth. And so is the moon, even though Cancer is very moody, but at least the moon is close to Earth, just like the sun. But Pluto is really far from the sun and the moon, you know? And right next to Pluto, you have Aquarius coming next. And you have Pisces as well, Neptune, you know? You have Saturn, you have Uranus. You know, and Jupiter is really where it starts to break. That's where the zodiac signs become emotionally distant. So Sagittarius, emotionally distant. Capricorn, emotionally distant. Aquarius, emotionally distant. Pisces, emotionally distant. And Scorpio, emotionally distant. It doesn't mean they don't have feelings. It means the availability of those feelings are, you know? Hi, Scorpio 56. Thanks for coming. They're not readily available with showing you their emotions. These are people that are very skilled at hiding their emotions. And, you know, when you take that personality that's skilled at hiding their emotions and you put them in a home where they're hiding their emotions, and, you know, when you take that personality that's skilled at hiding their emotions and you put them in a home where in addition to having a natural disposition towards hiding them, yeah, you're going to have a wounded adult who struggles with expressing their feelings. And relationships are about feelings. So the only issue with these two in terms of their soulmate status is they have to be willing to understand their emotional limitations, which come from their wounded childhood, and they have to be willing to work to develop the emotional skills to be a good lover. And many of them are simply too egotistical to A, admit to the terrible childhood they had, B, admit to the negative influences that terrible childhood had on their emotional well-being, and then that terrible childhood had on their emotional well-being, and then my alarm keeps coming up, and then C, communicate those limitations in relationships in a loving and safe manner so that they can actually elicit support from their partner around those limitations. You know, that takes balls. It takes courage. to be that person, to show up in this kind of vulnerable way with all of your heart bleeding and saying, I know I have these shortcomings that I've had my whole life, and I want to work on them so I can be better. So I can be better for myself and for you. But oftentimes, because they don't want to deal with all the murkiness and the paranoia that naturally comes with emotional abandonment, it's easier, especially in the case of water signs, to transfer it to their partner. Like, as an example, if I'm a water sign and I woke up that morning in a bad mood, I'm going to create scenarios that day in the relationship where you end up in the bad mood. And if I'm emotionally manipulative, after I'm done doing that, then I'm going to shame you for being in the bad mood. So I woke up in the bad mood, right? But I don't want to admit that I woke up in the bad mood because I have very little self-awareness or self-control when it comes to my feelings. And I also have a lot of shame associated with the negative emotions that I carry that I cannot manage. So what I'm going to do is little passive aggressive annoying things that I know that you hate so that you can be in the bad mood. That way we're both in a bad mood now, right? And then when you try to confront me about why I'm in such a stinky mood, I'm going to deny it. I'm not in a stinky mood. You're the one that's lashing out. And the more I deny it, the more you lash out. And then the more I successfully transfer my negativity onto you, because now you're the villain in the story, because you're the one acting out my bad mood. Do you see that? Dory gave me all sorts of darts. Lovely said, oh my gosh, spot on. Yeah, all water signs do this. Okay? Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, all of them do this. The issue isn't that they do it. The issue is that they're not aware they're doing it. They don't take responsibility for doing it. And they have no insight into how this manipulative, passive-aggressive behavior actually erodes at the trust in their relationship and basically kills that very foundation that they're building. Because they tend to be deeply loyal in relationship, they're not going to leave if they're not happy. But the problem is they're reinforcing this notion of living in toxic energy and chaotic energy, which they've dealt with in childhood. You know, the goal is to kind of elevate from there and try to invite, more positive emotions, invite more skills, more emotional awareness, more emotional development, so that we can actually develop intimacy in a safe environment with another. But that price that we pay for that is in blood. And oftentimes they don't want to bleed. They would rather you bleed for them. And that's why sometimes, even though zodiac signs are soulmates, if they don't have the maturity to recognize their emotional limitations, it doesn't work. Because love is about the heart. It's about feelings. You have to feel your pain. You have to feel your partner's pain. You have to be able to talk about your feelings and work together to find solutions to problems. When there's a problem, if your first reaction is to blame them or project your negativity onto them, which basically assumes that you're without faults and that you're the perfect one in the relationship and they're the troubled one, then yeah, they're not going to feel safe. They're not going to feel comfortable. They're not going to open up to you about insecurities. And they're going to act out at some point, because there's only so much negativity that a person can absorb before it starts to show up in the tangible physical world, in the material world. Because remember, everything starts in the spiritual, energetic, and then it manifests in the physical. So that's pretty much it with these two. Soulmates, but they have to heal. When these two have not done their healing work, I don't think they need to be together. No. It's way too much unprocessed trauma with people that are stuck together, but that are not actually growing and not helping each other become better human beings. It's just a lot of ego, a lot of narcissism, and that's not to say they're narcissistic. It's narcissistic behaviors that they exhibit, and there's very little joy, very little pleasure in the relationship. Because remember, the sun is where all the pleasure is. That's Leo energy, Back to Taurus, Venus. Venus is very close to the sun. It's very hot. When there's no heat, there's no passion. When there's no passion, there's no joy. I want you to associate cold with lack of pleasure. Okay, think about the last time you were in a freezing building. How did that feel? Yes, sometimes when it gets too hot, it's uncomfortable too, but it's very different from when you're in a freezing building. So for these two, when they refuse to do their healing work, it can feel like being in a relationship where you're stuck in the freezing building with somebody. Because all the emotions that you give go unreceived. All the love that you pour gets poured out. And they're just not able to understand each other. So it feels like you're giving it your all, but your heart never quite feels loved, supported, seen, valued, accepted, encouraged, safe. It never feels peaceful. Thank you for that question. Lovely said we both have Libra stellium in the 12th house. Oh, yikes. That means you've done this before. Yeah, Libra in the 12th house is a sign that you never get married. Because these people have bad karma with partnership. By the way, that's what it means to be a karmic. When I tell you that Scorpio, Capricorn, and Aquarius are karmics, that's what it means. It means you have bad karma from past relationships when you were not a good lover. You were not good at doing partnership. You were not good at giving and taking in the relationship. Now, when I say not good at it, people often assume it's negative. It means you were like, I don't know, people think it means you're like a bad lover. Like, no, it's not that you're a bad lover. It's that you may not have understood this balance of give and take in love. It's about give and take in love. Love is about giving and taking. Some people are very good at the giving. They're not good at the receiving. Some people are very good at the taking. They're not good at the giving. You know, people who have Libra in 12th house have a long karmic history with being bad at partnership. And people that are bad at partnership are people who don't know how to give and take. And that involves asking for what you deserve, okay? Partnering with people who can give you what you deserve. Keeping to your agreement. Giving back what's given to you. Being emotionally available, not just physically available. Being emotionally present, not just financially present. Being honest. Being kind. Being fair. Being gentle. Treating them how you would want to be treated if you were in their shoes. Being forgiving. All of those things, all of this is Libra energy. Being peaceful. All of those things, all of this is Libra energy. Being peaceful. Sometimes the Libra lesson really is to stop doing partnership with people who don't value it. And that's the other part of Libra energy we hardly ever talk about. You see, Libra as a zodiac sign is very obsessed with partnership. Oftentimes these people get married very, very young for this reason. Very young, especially in 12th house, because 12th house is where you replay past life karma. So it's what's familiar. You've done it before, you know what to do. So oftentimes these people get married very young without actually putting in the work to acquire the skills of partnership. Partnership is about work. Giving and receiving is about work. You have to extend your hand to give, and you have to extend your hand to receive. When people haven't done their work, there's a lot of ego wrapped up in the concept of giving and receiving. So they deliberately pick partners who don't value them, who don't respect them, who don't honor them, who don't treat them as an equal. They often pick partners who devalue them, who disrespect them. They often pick partners who are selfish and self-involved, partners who don't think about them, who don't give them any consideration. Like basically subconsciously on a karmic wiring level, they're attracted to people who do not return their love in a healthy way, because that is their karmic debt. That's the karma that they've accumulated this whole time. And they came in this one to set the record, to rebalance the scales, to set the record straight about the fact that they're worthy of the love they give. But oftentimes they don't want to do that work. They're afraid of being alone because oftentimes they don't have an identity outside of partnership. They don't know how to be independent. They don't know how to have their own life, their own viewpoint, their own path. A lot of them struggle with independence. There's a lot of codependency in their relationships, which If that was coupled with a desire to actually get better at partnership and to work on the relationship, then it could work. But oftentimes they want the codependency without the emotional investment of fixing, the issues that they're having that are keeping them from being able to create, a harmonious environment in their relationship. Lovely said, oh dear, this is hitting home. Well, lovely, we all are here because we have work to do. That's why we came to Earth. This is not paradise. It can be in the mind, but this place has both light and darkness, and we have to choose who we want to be. Do we want to be agents of light? Do we want to be people that shine brightly even though our planets are far away from the sun? Or do we want to be people that basically spread darkness on Earth and spread like cold hearts and spread negative energy? All of that. Thank you, my love. I appreciate it. All of that is a choice. All of that is a choice. But Libras often are the agents of their own misery in the sense that they don't want to take responsibility for the fact that not making a choice is making a choice. And in addition, they want to enjoy the privilege of being in the passenger seat so that the responsibility of how we get there and if we get there safely is not on them. That way, when all of it falls apart, they don't have to blame themselves because it was never their choice. It was never their decision. They're willingly go into partnership, oftentimes, giving away their power. It's really rare that I see Libras that are the opposite, where they go in and they take it all. I mean, I've seen some, but usually more often than not, they go in and they give it all, and they give it all. And they like to see it as something positive and loving they're doing. But the part they don't want to see is that it's really a passive way to get out of being responsible for the life decisions that they're making that do not actually help them be happy. So it's like, I get to be in the passenger seat. I don't have the stress of driving the car. I don't have the stress of keeping up with the GPS. I don't have to worry about taking the wrong exit. And then if we end up getting lost, I get to blame you for getting lost. But it's not my fault. It's not my fault we're lost. They don't want the burden of making the wrong choice. Being independent requires being able to sit with the burden of making the right or the wrong choice. And oftentimes, instead of admitting that they don't want the burden of being in charge of their lives, they want to passive aggressively control their partner. And oftentimes, because they pick partners who don't care about their needs and their wants, they end up in these scenarios where they're frustrated, not getting their emotional needs met. They don't want to leave the relationship because unlike other zodiac signs, Libra actually thrives in relationships. Libra, unlike the others, needs partnership to really fulfill their soul's calling in this life. They really do. So that spiritually they know they need to be here and they need to have this experience, but the work that's needed to make this experience work for them, they often do not want to engage with it because it requires facing their own shadows, their own darkness, the ways in which they manipulate, to get their needs met, as opposed to actually being, decisive, because Libra is a leader in astrology. Leaders are decisive. Leaders are direct. Leaders don't talk out of both sides of their mouth. You can be diplomatic without betraying yourself. That's what Libra is here to learn. Diplomacy doesn't mean lies. It doesn't equate to lies. It doesn't equate to manipulation. Yeah, and yes, diplomacy requires discomfort. You have to tell that person, I love you, but this is not going to work for me. I love you, but I'm uncomfortable with this. I love you, but I'm unhappy. I love you, but I need us to do things differently. That requires transparency, something oftentimes they struggle with because they don't want to be perceived as a negative Nancy. They don't want to be perceived as someone that brings drama and chaos because they like peace. And unfortunately, peace is something we have to fight for. It's not given to us on a silver platter. We have to demand it. We have to fight for it. We have to ask for it. We have to put our foot down on it. We have to go get it. The universe is in a constant state of stability, but the humans inhabiting Earth are not. And you can't. It's a disservice to your soul to assume that everybody you meet has your best interests. I know you have everyone's best interests, But you're doing yourself a disservice if you're assuming that everyone also has your best interests, and you're also doing yourself a disservice if you're waiting for them to realize on their own that they're not being helpful. You don't give people that much credence. Don't give them that much credit. You know, a Libra that is healthy advocates for their needs. This is why, by the way, I'll leave you guys with this. Judge Judy is one of my favorite persons. I'm not someone that's crazy about celebrities, but I am crazy about her. She's the only one I'm crazy about and that I would like to meet one day. She's a Libra, and when I learned that she was a Libra, it really blew my mind, because I was like, that's why I love her. She's very direct. You know, she's a leader. She holds court. She asks for what she wants. She doesn't get into the nonsense. Like all cardinal signs, that's Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, are the same. The difference is Libra is the only one that really struggles to really step into their power and step into their leadership and demand what they deserve. And as a result, oftentimes people use them because they don't want to demand. So if you don't ask, they're going to pretend to not know because it suits, you know, it suits their experience to not put forth more effort to make you happy. So that's pretty much it in terms of Libra 12th house. You know, it's really about you owning the way in which you perpetuate toxic relationships by not being willing to examine the passive aggressive ways you go about trying to control situations as opposed to being more transparent about your needs and being more forthright about what will be helpful to you and what's not helpful to you, because the people who love you generally want to give you what you want and what you need. And the thing about Libra also being ruled by Venus is that they're so generous. So the people who love you want to give you what you need, but oftentimes you just function from this perspective that you don't deserve. So you don't ask, and you think other people will just know that you should be given it, whatever it is. And oftentimes they don't, because they're not as relationship inclined as you. You're going to be the most relationship inclined zodiac sign out of the entire zodiac. So this expectation that you have that other people are going to be as relationship inclined as you and that they're going to be as good at, you know, reading through your signals to it's faulty. It's a faulty mechanism, and that if you have Libra at the 12th house, that's why you're here. If you have Libra as Saturn, that's why you're here. You're here to actually put effort into showing up as a leader in your relationships. That's why you're here. And a leader doesn't have to be a tyrant, and a leader doesn't have to be a pushover. There is a balance between being a tyrant and being a pushover, and that's what Libra is here to find. All right, guys, those are beautiful questions. Thanks for coming to hang out with me. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I've been so busy this summer. It's been hard to find time to sit down and do this. So I'm so grateful I got back on here, and thanks to you guys that came and hung out and listened and gave me likes and gifts and all of the wonderful, sweet things. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching my videos and being a part of this journey. I want to remind you that I have YouTube channels where I post on astrology. One is about love, conveniently called Styled under Libra. So if you're interested in astrology, love content, you can go check it out there. One is about health and wellness, Styled under Virgo is the name of the channel. You can go check it out. Styled like styling. And then of course I have the main channel at Intuitive Healing, where I share Astrology 101 content, and the Aquarius podcast on Spotify and YouTube for your horoscopes and manifestation tips. Take care of yourselves. I love you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye. I know with all the planets that we have retrograde, there's a lot coming up for people right now, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all bad. It could just be like increased awareness. You know, I think it's only bad if you want to make it bad. You know, if you're someone who thinks that life should be figured out before it's lived, then yeah, it's going to feel bad because you're judging yourself. You're being hard on yourself. You're being critical. You're not being kind. And you're not being patient with yourself while you discover what life has in store for you. So naturally, whenever you get pushback from the universe, instead of being receptive and being open to the new direction, or even developing some kind of curiosity about why you're getting the pushback, you may just go immediately to like a negative space of like judgment and criticism and negativity and kicking yourself and putting yourself down. Like, if you live that way, of course retrograde season is hard, because you're not receptive to the journey, the process. None of us have this life thing figured out. I hope you know that. And it doesn't matter how old you are, that never ends. You're never going to be old enough where you have it figured out. That's a lie that all of us were told when we were little, and it's not true. Nobody knows. We learn things along the way that help us make good decisions and help us, like, anticipate things and help us strategize, but we don't know for sure how things are going to go. So a lot of it is really being in the moment and being open and receptive to the moment.
So Victoria wants to know about Pluto in 8th house of Aquarius. So Pluto in astrology is a planet of birth and death and rebirth. It is who is the ruler of Scorpio. Oh, thank you, Ms. Janvier, for all my roses. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. So when I talk about how the fixed signs are going to be going through a lot of transitions until 2044, I'm referencing Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius and what that's going to mean for the fixed signs until 2044. Now, if you personally happen to have Pluto in your 8th house, then you should know that you're going to be personally affected by that transit coming up over the next 2044, almost 10 years. Pluto in astrology is a planet of death, birth, rebirth, sex, creation, destruction, resources in terms of like management of resources. This is why Scorpio is very good at managing money. Oh, hi. Thank you for being here for the first time. I appreciate it. I appreciate you hanging out. So that is Pluto. Pluto is about intensity. Pluto is about what's serious. Pluto is about what is important. Pluto is about what you need to release in order to grow. So if you know anything about Scorpio, they are dark, they're intense, they're mysterious. It's because Scorpio is constantly dying and being reborn. Scorpio is constantly losing people and things in their lives. So if you happen to have Pluto in your 8th house and also in the sign of Aquarius, you should expect a lot of a transition in your life. You're going to be experiencing a lot of death and rebirth, and it could be figuratively or literally. So you should be getting yourself ready for a lot of like having to reevaluate what's necessary and what isn't in your life, reevaluate your values, your belief systems, reevaluate the way that you use connections, the way that you do community, the way that you use technology, the way that you partner. Oh, someone said I'm amazing. Thank you so much, Cancerian, for saying that. I appreciate it. You're amazing too. So you should be able to basically go through this process of assessment to evaluate what's happening in your life and what is it that's keeping you from growing and developing into the person that you're supposed to be. So over the next 10 years, you're going to be faced with a lot of grief, with a lot of loss, with a lot of endings, with a lot of reinventing yourself, reinventing your life, reinventing how you go about retract. And you do that why? Because your soul is dissatisfied. Your soul is feeling unstable. Your soul is feeling out of sync, out of divine alignment, out of spiritual alignment. So it is also about your soul satisfaction in a sense that by ridding yourself of the things that no longer serve you, you're empowering yourself to align yourself with the things that do. And with Aquarius, the idea here is going to be around social justice. What does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be a humanitarian? How do we help our community? How do we help the world? How do we help people who are struggling? How do we come up with sciences and technologies to enhance the quality of our lives as a populace, as a collective, as a human race? And what kind of future do we want to leave behind for future generations? So a lot of progressive issues are going to be like the focus for you during this time, and you're going to have to like rethink about some of these issues and make the decision to actually actively get involved in issues, as Pluto in Aquarius is going to be personally affecting you. The last time we had Pluto in Aquarius, so much in our world transitioned. And for those of you who, for you who asked that question, and those of you who are, rising sign Aquarius or Leo or Scorpio or Taurus, I need you to actually go watch my Pluto and Aquarius video, which, they're on there. You can go on YouTube and search for them, like Pluto and Aquarius. And I have a lot of content on there that you can watch about it, like lots, like so many videos, honestly. I have over 1,200 videos. So I promise you, any question that you ask me, it's probably already made. So go on there. What I like about YouTube is that you can use a search box. TikTok doesn't yet have that option. So you go youtube.com and you just search for Pluto and Aquarius on my channel. And every time Pluto was mentioned in Aquarius, it's going to come up and you can watch all those videos. I think that will be helpful to you as well. So that was my question about what you can expect with Pluto and Aquarius. Thanks you guys for hanging out with me this evening. I love spending time with you. Thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for all my gifts. Thank you for being here, watching my content. Thank you for being my subscriber. Thank you for making me laugh and cry and just being a part of this journey with me. It means the world to me. I love you guys so much. I'm very passionate about this, and I'm so glad that you are just as I am. So that brought us together. So now our souls are connected around this belief, this energy that we have with each other, and I'm so grateful for it. So thanks for your love and your support. You mean the world to me, and I'm so grateful our paths are crossed and that we're now in each other's lives, and I feel truly blessed. So thank you again for this wonderful evening, and I will catch you on Thursday. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Ms. Janvier, and thank you, Wiz the Kid, and thanks everyone else. Love you guys. Bye.
You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.